Thank you all for joining us for this special event. It is my pleasure to introduce Acting FAA Administrator Polly Trottenberg and Deputy FAA Administrator Katie Thompson. Polly and Katie, welcome.
Thank you, Leslie. It is great to be here this morning, and I'm thrilled to be working as the acting administrator. I actually started my transportation career in the aviation department of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, and I worked in the World Trade Center. So for me, today's announcement has a special resonance, and I'm thrilled to be joined with FAA's new Deputy Administrator, Katie Thompson.
Thank you. Like Polly, I'm thrilled to be back at the FAA to work alongside the FAA team and our labor partners, particularly to deliver on this critical safety mandate that has been years in coming, and we're pleased to announce it today.
And before we get started, just wanted to take a moment to thank and acknowledge the work of the outgoing acting administrator, Billy Nolan. He had a lot of leadership. He championed this rule and really cared about it since he had been a captain at American Airlines on September 11th. So thank you to Billy. He had a great team behind him that made this possible. Want to give a shout out to the Office of Aviation Safety led by David Bolter and the whole team. Also want to thank the advocates. They, along with our labor partners, never gave up on this long process, and that's why we're so grateful for their help in getting this rule done.
That's right, Polly. Because of their efforts, new aircraft will now have a secondary barrier. This will add a critical additional layer of security, preventing intrusions when the flight deck door is open. To mark the completion, we have three great guests who were instrumental in getting this rule finalized. Joining us this morning, Captain Jason Ambrosi from the Airline Pilots Association, Captain Chip Hancock from the Southwest Airlines Pilot Association, and Captain Bill Cason from the Coalition of Airline Pilot Associations. Welcome all, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to begin with Captain Ambrosi. Could you help us explain how this extra layer of security will help pilots to focus on flying and not have to worry about the safety risks in the cockpit and the cabin?
Well, thank you, Deputy Administrator Thompson, and thank you, Acting Administrator Trottenberg. I'm honored to join you and my fellow pilots here today for this very, very important announcement. 22 years ago, this September, terrorists used passenger aircraft to kill nearly 3,000 of our fellow Americans and shattered our sense of safety and security. We responded to these attacks decisively and put multiple measures in place to prevent another tragedy like this from happening, but until now have failed to act to install secondary flight deck door barriers. We have been a long, strong proponent of these secondary barriers, which are proven effective physical barricade that helps prevent dangerous people intent on causing harm from reaching the flight deck when the door is open during flight. This added layer of security will help me and my fellow pilots focus on the most important part of our job, the safe operation of every flight to ensure our aviation system remains the gold standard of safety.
Thank you, Captain Ambrosi, and thanks to ALPA for your incredible leadership on this. And now I want to turn to Captain Cason and give us some more, I think, your perspective on sort of the evolution of flight deck security and as Deputy Administrator Thompson mentioned, the layers of security that this will now be putting in place.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here today, and I add my congratulations. This was born
Captain Cason, I think you've frozen.
for hardened flight deck doors and resistant to forcible intrusion and preventing unauthorized access to the flight deck. So what we found in the actual execution of those flight deck doors is there were times when the door had to be open in flight when in extended operation. It just has to happen for, meal service, physiological needs, crew transitions, those kind of things. So and the FAA mandated, I think, good job of mandating that, during those times there had to be some security operations in the area of the door to ensure that there's no unauthorized access. So, but that was an area of vulnerability. And we did some red teaming in that along with our partners and our colleagues. And we found out that really in as little as 3 seconds, when the door is being transited and someone's either coming out or coming back in, that a coordinated attack could get inside the flight deck I'll actually, use the hardened door kind of against us by shutting it behind them. So, recognizing that vulnerability, we've been strong advocates for what we, call IPSBs, or installed physical barriers, because the airlines were kind of up, had to establish their own procedures on how to secure that environment. And that could be done with, beverage carts. We've all seen that, when we're flying the beverage cart out in the aisle, or even human shields. Captain Hancock can attest to that at Southwest. So these things are very important, the secondary barriers, because they provide a reactionary gap. They allow which needs to have the door shut, and that gives the flight attendants and the cabin crew time to get that done. They also provide, intent of an impending attack, and it's a cost-effective, scalable security enhancement for our air domain. So we absolutely support the secondary barriers, and we have to, as we're talking about this, I can't fail to mention Mrs. Ellen Saraceni, who has been a tireless advocate for secondary barriers. And as it moves forward, she's one of the primary reasons it has moved forward over these last 20 years. So we welcome this announcement.
Well, Captain Ambrosi and Captain Kasem, thank you for kind of explaining the need and how we got to this point and the importance of this rulemaking. I wonder, turning to you, Captain Hancock, if you can kind of explain the nature of how the threat has evolved over time. One of the things that we're seeing, particularly since COVID, is an increase in the number of unruly passengers, and we have a number of tools in our toolkit to deal with that. But can you kind of help us better understand how this particular rule is another tool that is really instrumental in helping us secure?
No, absolutely. And as you highlighted, we've seen it since COVID. These incidents on the airplanes have risen exponentially. And in aviation, as you all well know, what we do is we manage risks. And having this secondary barrier is just a tremendous additional layer of security to help us manage that risk of the things that are going on behind the door that we have no control or input over. So, to get that barrier up, and at Southwest, as they mentioned, we don't have parts. It's literally just a human shield, if you will. So to have this barrier, to be able to ensure that whatever's going on back there doesn't make its way to the cockpit, especially in those vulnerable times when we do have to open the door for physiological needs or whatever. So again, from a risk management standpoint, this is a huge win. It's a tremendous increase in our ability to keep the airplane safe and secure. And also, I want to highlight that it is a great example of what we do best, and that is work together. The FAA, labor, the airlines, and the administration to take the risks that we have to deal with every day to operate the airplane, but manage them and minimize them to the max extent possible. So I appreciate your efforts. We appreciate that this is going to be done, and I think it's going to be a huge improvement for the traveling public.
Thank you, Captain Hancock. Thanks to all three of you, and thanks for acknowledging. I think this has been a tremendous partnership with the FAA, with our labor partners, with industry. It's a real great milestone, I think, in our ongoing efforts to increase aviation security. And look, no solution is perfect, but we think there is a lot of good in this one. And thanks to the president and the secretary for helping us get to this point. And look, while the airlines have some time to implement this rule, one thing we want to make clear, speaking on behalf of myself and Deputy Administrator Thompson, is we're hoping the airlines will work to beat this deadline. They know the requirements, they know the technical specifications. If they're taking a plane for delivery right now, there's no reason it should not come with a secondary barrier. I want to just, again, give a special thanks to our guests for participating. And I want to thank all of you and your organizations for all the work you do to keep our national airspace system the safest in the world.
Thank you so much, Polly and Katie. And we will put a link to the press release in the YouTube stream here if you want to learn more. And that concludes our event. So have a great day, everyone.